Oh, terrific Thursday. No, thankful Thursday. I'm thankful because some things that I had to learn and discover during 2020, a lot of people won't see it, but it's proven to be true, and a lot of it is unfortunate. The case in point, COVID. I saw Rathony faulty yesterday pleading the fifth, and the dog and pony show of it all, because for the most part I'm tired of congressional hearings, because what do they amount to? I remember, because see, a lot of people, and which is unfortunate, and this is why I tell people to slow down, but emotions, everybody get all emotionally caught up in things, and then main scheme Hollywood, when all of them get to working together, they just beat you up into a frenzy. I'm thankful that that wasn't the route that I take, nor anybody that I'm really prayerful with takes, because had it been that route, I am very sure, as one of my dearest friends said to me about a year ago, that she was glad that I never took the shot. She said because she suspected that a lot of the unexplained deaths and certain things were occurring because of the shot. And that it most definitely are some things that are attributed, a lot of things that were attributed to the shot, but they suppressed it. And you have people who, instead of looking around to see, they'll tell you that you're wrong. So kudos to you. You can keep not listening and, believing. And I know it's hard to believe when something that you thought was a righteous cause, but I knew. And going forward, I just want to advise people, when you have people willing to pay you gobs of money, it's like they're paying you to use you as a tester. The vaccine for me, number one, my first red sign, I was like, it wasn't even tested well or on anybody. And they just coming out, because they had to rush it, whatever. Then when they gave the blanket immunity to pharmaceutical companies in case of adverse, and I'm like, that don't sound good. So that was another red flag. Then the next one was when the guy that actually developed Dr. Malone, and I mean, I'm like, this man don't even know what he's talking about. He developed the what's it, mRNA, and he was like, hey, it's like a spike protein, so I was listening to a lot of that. I remember Dr. Stella and them when they came out, and Simone, when they came out, and they were like, no, you need to treat it with, what was it, I can't even pronounce it, whatever. I mean, they shut them out. Now, for me, I'm like, you got medical professionals who, everybody has a different method of treatment. All doctors have different methods of treatment. So to see you just wholesale blanketly, no, we're not going to do that. You can't do XYZ. It has to be the shot. I was like, that's problematic. Then when it was different conversations, I remember having a conversation with an old friend of mine, and we talking about the shot, and this was during the time when everybody was getting, hyped up on getting the shot. And he said, well, I don't know if it was his doctor or his mother's doctor, had mentioned to him, he was like, those shots are going to cause an uptick in cancer. So that was another flag. Then there was some other things that went on that I looked up, like the clotting, and it was something with the menstrual cramps. Because I remember I did my research, and I remember I went the route of, I said, well, I'm gonna seek I got a religious exemption with the company I was with at the time. So I went through, thank God, that I was able to go through the Liberty Council. That's why I respect the work of the Liberty Council. I donate to the Liberty Council when I can. because they helped me. I contacted them. They have a Florida office and a DC office, and I was like, hey, I'm a pastor's granddaughter. I've been in the church XYZ. My faith, I believe this, that, and the other. And they attested, okay, because you had to have an attestation. Because I was turned down by somebody that knew me in the church from doing it. And I kind of get it, but then I kind of don't, because I'm like, at the end of the day, God is God. And if I'm asking you, I'm putting myself in God's hands. And you as a believer should touch and agree with me. But I guess since you didn't touch and agree, I don't want to question your faith. But for me, at the end of the day, it came down to faith for me. So I was able to be granted the religious exemption. And I'm living. I'm living. And then the other thing I had put in there, because at the time before I had found out that I had a fibroid, and I mean, it was a big fibroid. I mean, it was not real big, but it was big enough. But it was it was causing me problems with my cycle. So that was another thing. And they was like, it was different things that had come out in, I don't know if it was Washington Post or it was an article, probably wasn't the Post. Because at the time they were running interference too. And but it was like they don't know the potential causes, harm that it might do to females. I'm like, I got enough issues going on with my cycle. I don't need to go through that. So thank God, like I said, the Liberty Council did my attestation. But going forward, people, I just want to, especially to the Christian community, and I'm talking about real Christians, it's times when you have to know when to hold to God. And the biggest thing, the problem I had with people was, if you wanted to get the shot, that was fine. But people were out here shaming people, and I don't want to be around you. Like, what? I was like, you know what? You a special kind of... But I was like, you know what? But everybody has a right to make their own decision. So, I just... And then the juvenile with the vax that thing up, the Krispy Kreme donuts giving giveaways if you get the shot, then if you get it again. I'm like, what if you get it and then you got to get it again and again? And then the other thing, people when they got it was feeling like they were just wiped out. I remember my one of my friends got it, and I think the second dose, I don't know if it was the second dose, I think they was like knocked out. Slick, like, I ain't never felt like this. I'm like, who gets a shot and feel like that? So I was like, no, I'm good. I was good from jump, because I'm like, no, you're not about to use me as whatever y'all doing. No. But just the whole messaging, the insanity. But the biggest thing that got me, they didn't want you to go to church, but they allow people to go out in the streets and protest. They allow people to go to the liquor store or the strip club. That was total BS. And I was like, I commend the churches that fought back and that weren't having it. Because if you are going to say that alcohol and all that is essential, it's nothing more essential than God, especially when you're going through something like a pandemic. That's when you need to have God. But no, what they did, and I knew it then and then as I'm watching the world with all these demons operating, they unleashed a lot of demonic spirits out here. Because when you're out chanting, you're not praying to God. They were out here chanting and worshiping ancestors out in the open. That's when Patrice Cullors and them were out there very heavily. And people, I'm a person, I go look up things before I even make an assessment or decision. So I had looked up when they first came out, because I said something is not right with these people. I said just something not right with the whole thing. So we're 3 trained Marxists, and then come to find out that not only were they Marxists, they were witches. And then part of BLM is and Marxist agenda period is the destruction of the nuclear family. That was on their Who We Are page when they first came out, and then once they started getting people, some people had brought it up. Then I remember they scrubbed it from their page, but I was like, it was already out there. So the only thing at that point, that again, for those of us that saw it, of course you have people that want to believe so badly because they was black, they was just that and the other. That don't mean nothing. That's how Satan do his best tricks. Sometimes it's people that are closest to you, or that you think won't hurt you or harm you, or because they are particular this, that, and the other. No. But when people are telling you and trying to rush you, because it was when anytime you have to be rushed into something, you better pray on it and think about it. But a lot of people weren't thinking about it. Fear is damaging. That's the other thing I said. It's a whole spirit of fear that's operating. Anything that is in fear, just like confusion, is coming attached to the devil. And the only person that can turn that type of thing into something good, or make a good use out of things like that, is God. God showed a lot of us, number one, that he is God, because there were a lot of people that did not get vaxxed. And I'm not saying all of them were Christians, because some of them weren't. They just weren't going to do it because they have a natural distrust for the medical profession, or they watched, or they did their research. They weren't going to do it. But God to me showed, I know he showed me, I'm God. I got you. And he had me. He had me. So it was no big thing. So, but I was like, but to see the church and a lot of people that profess to be heavily, like they, I'm just gonna say it, they act like they more, God's own, and I'm like, so if he, shouldn't you pray and trust him, and then don't trash people if they decide that they don't want to do that, because that is their choice. But again, the world, y'all was feeling good with, them telling you, and then with, oh God, Joe Biden with the, y'all gonna die. Oh, I said, did he really say that? I said, no, Satan, you a liar. Still here, Joseph, still here. I remember he got up there and he had that the coloring of the video, all that was dark, and he talking about y'all gonna die, it's gonna be a rough winter, and this, that, and the other. Do you see me? Can somebody tell Joseph's robbing that Biden still here? Okay. And I don't think all of them got it. And then and the other thing, we were supposed to get it, but the people that were coming here through the border, the open border, they weren't required. I said, well, if they not required to get it, and then you had people like Gavin Newsom was outside. No, did he go to another country? He went somewhere. Like a lot of these politicians was doing their thing, and I'm like, really? And I'm not talking about the politicians that said that they weren't going to shut down, or they were going to, put some things in place, but they weren't going to shut their cities and things down. They just was going to use, safety and health measures. I'm talking about the jokers that was like, y'all got to stay inside, you got to do this. I remember they was talking about telling people they couldn't sing at weddings or at church. I'm like, what? And I said part of it is a test, I think, to see how far they can go. 2, to usher in this demonic spirit, because now, since we have seen the Summer of Love and the chanting, you have more people that are into things other than God, and the demonic activity that has happened, and the pickup in demonic activity. And when I say demonic activity, one thing that's where we see all these people, when you can kill your entire family, like I thought when somebody said he killed this whole family, it was 8 people. I forgot. I thought they were talking about the black guy. What was that, 2 months ago? That killed. I think he killed, shot. What is his kids? I think all his kids, and then a cousin, and then, but it was the other guy. This was a white guy. I think this week or last week killed his. I was like, what? Those are demons. The transgender guy. The latest one that killed his mother, I think in California, with a hammer. That's demonic. And you know that these people, when you see them wigging out like that, and going off because somebody called you out your name. That is something, that's a spirit in them. And I'm like, and you see people that so, quoting scriptures all day, every day, and talking about, oh yeah, I go to church every Sunday, I do it. But they talking about mental. No, we have passed mental illness. We're amongst demons. And the latest demon, because I'm gonna talk about this in another video, but it's a woman that shot her 4-year-old daughter multiple times. That's demonic. That's not what mother killed. What mother is shoot a 4-year-old? And the daughter, I think it was another child, I don't know if it was a son or daughter, but they said a 12-year-old answered the door and said that their sister was in there bleeding. Demons. So the stuff that we're seeing is demonic. So for me, I'm like, everything that I suspected, and I know it's a lot of people that don't believe it, and that's fine. But I know what I see and what I believe, and a lot of things that I said to people has actually come true. Now, the other thing that's tragic for me is I remember, that's why as far as cancer, I have seen so many people over the last 2-3 years since COVID, and I know a lot of them were vaxxed, that had cancer. And I was like, this definitely is, I think back to that doctor. I think back to when Dr. Malone was saying that it's a spike protein and it'll, create illnesses that, in people and in younger people. Look at the young people that just out of nowhere dying, younger and younger. These people, and then instead of when people were reporting adverse reactions, they was trying to hide that too. So I realize that's why I don't fool around with mainstream media as a main. So I'll skim through them sometimes, but I do not fool with them because they were a part of all of that. To me, good journalism is to report on all of it, both sides. What's working for this person, what's working for that person, what's not working. But they weren't doing that. Everything was to vilify. If people said that they were against it, or they didn't, trust, that they didn't want to go through with it because they didn't have any faith in the rollout and what they were rolling out and how quick they were rolling it out. And then once they gave, 75 years immunity to, why would you give that type of immunity to companies? Then, for me, why would you pardon somebody for 10 years, covering 10 years, for something that you don't suspect it was something that could come back? It's one thing you didn't know, because we were in a situation didn't know. But this is why I think it was some nefarious things and they knew what they were doing. But at any rate, all I'm going to say to you is, going forward, the next time something comes up, and it's always something coming, or anything that you see going on around you, when these people are talking to you, trying to make you scared, and it's a whole campaign of fear, and they're going to pay you to do this, that, and the other, all money is not good money. If your spirit is not at peace with a decision or with what's going on around you, don't do it. Pray, ask for guidance, do your research. Don't rely on what these people are telling you. Don't rely on mainstream media, because I'm telling you, a lot of information was coming from outside of the country, other countries, and other countries have, I think Italy and some other places, had discovered long ago, like the blood clots. That's when they was calling it the clot shot, because people were developing all kinds of stuff, but they suppressed it, and it on purpose, because the agenda was to pump out that vaccine. And I do believe part of it was population control, but that's neither here nor there. God will deal with them. God will deal with whoever planned anything nefarious, whoever covered it up, whoever intentionally, I'm not talking about because you didn't know, but intentionally. And if you did not explain to your patients the risk of or potential risks, Because people actually, I don't think a lot of people thought that there was a risk because everybody was so happy-go-lucky. And I'm vaccinated. I'm fully vaccinated. Freaking pictures on. I was like, really? That's what we doing now? Did we ask for HIV? I'm clean. Did we post our HIV status? I've never been so disgusted in my life. But I'm thankful and I'm grateful and I'm thankful to God. So I honestly hope, I never wished ill on people. Even though a lot of people was wishing ill on a lot of people, which would include myself, because yeah, I didn't get it. And it wasn't about being anti-vax, that dumbass term that they had. It was about being common sense and being like, no, whatever you decide is good for you, but that's not for me. And I'm thankful that it wasn't. I am. I always pray for those who have had it, because I'm like, I know the potential risks that they had, and some people didn't want to get it, but they did it for their jobs, and I can understand that. But like I said, for all that they did, pressuring people, because it was a lot of pressure. I mean, it was ridiculous. When I know you were pressuring people like that and threatening them to lose their jobs, and that, I knew it was something demonic. So be prayerful going forward. Do your research. Do not, I'm telling you, I tell y'all all the time, stop relying on mainstream media. Please. They're bought and paid for. They're owned by all these big old Hollywood production companies and Disney and all Comcast, all that. They about production. Be safe and sensible and wise. Proverbs, is it 3, 5, and 6? We get wisdom, seek wisdom, ask for wisdom. Yeah.